Sue, how long have you lived around Fitzroy?
Well, I was a child around this area, around Fitzroy and Collingwood. That's where we grew up, around this way. Unfortunately, we had to leave during the 1950s because of the DLP.
Yeah.
A lot of problems with the DLP and in the area. But then I came back in the 1970s, in the late 70s, and was around there for a while. Fitzroy was a different area in those days. It was what you can really say a working class area.
Yeah.
And when I say working class, it was often the unemployed working class.
Yeah.
People who just didn't have jobs. That at the time it was understood that they didn't have jobs because no jobs were available.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's a different attitude. If you're around this area and you haven't got a job, you must be no good.
Yeah.
It's your fault.
Yeah.
So you wear it. But there was a feeling in Fitzroy. We knew we came from Fitzroy.
Yeah.
And people would say, like, you could be in some other state, you could be in some other country, and they'd say, where do you come from? You say, Fitzroy.
Yeah.
And it was known. Fitzroy was well known. Every every corner, of course, had a pub. There was something like 200 pubs originally.
Wow.
And some of them have disappeared. Actually, I must make a point about the pubs. There's a beautiful pub in the main drag, you know, Fitzroy, called the Perseverance Hotel.
Yeah, yeah.
Across the road was a hotel called the Labour in Vain.
Yeah.
And I think I could sum up a lot about the whole feeling of Fitzroy. Was on the side of the Labour in Vain was a big wall painting, painting on the wall of this white woman scrubbing with soap a little black boy. Scrubbing Labour in Vain. But the Perseverance had a white woman, scrubbing this little black fella. And he was coming off white.
Whoa.
The Perseverance.
Yeah.
And that was like the era of the time was like our career people should become part of us. We all,
like that. Yeah.
That was sort of like the feeling of Fitzroy. You know, we never noticed, even as children, that some of the kids we were at school with and playing with happened to be black, to be Koori, because you didn't notice.
Yeah.
We noticed when the kids came from Greece and from Italy, and the ones that came out from Europe, that we didn't notice that the other kids were any different from us because we were all in the same boat.
Yeah.
And Fitzroy was basically, well, not the slum it was in like 50 years ago, but it was definitely lower class, lower grade, lower status.
Yeah. Do you think that's one of the reasons it's more tolerant?
It was more tolerant because we all accepted each other. No one had to prove they were any different or any better than each other. We didn't. It wasn't smart to try and look rich. It wasn't smart to be able to sit out on the street drinking coffee all afternoon wearing your dark glasses. Yeah. It wasn't clever. We didn't think there was anything in that. Yeah. And of course, all that. Where are the pubs in Fitzroy? We could go into pubs. You could sit there all day without even buying a drink. I mean, you wouldn't have a drink. You'd be happy enough just to go in there. People would talk. Ladies, I use the word ladies, used to go in there and shell their peas for their evening meal. And they could see them shelling the peas, putting them in the pot and talking to each other. All those wonderful women, you know, called Bev and Mavis and Pearl, and names that you never hear anymore, unfortunately. But they were lovely old names. Everyone had an Auntie Pearl, I think. Yeah. Always shelling peas. Yeah. We had the same Salvation Army woman called Vera, who always went around from pub to pub with a face you could bounce a brick off. She was a hard-faced old thing. Yeah. She'd seen everything, been everywhere, been there, done that. She was like a reformed drunk or something herself. She was fabulous. I reckon she got more money for the Salvation Army than anyone else. Yeah. But she never sold you a watch, a war cry, whatever they are. Sorry, I'm getting the names confused. Never talked to us about the religion, just shook that damn tin. Yeah. And so we always paid her. It was a nice place. The fish and chip shop on the corner next to the Provincial Hotel. It was the best fish and chip shop in town. It was basically, I think, when that fish and chip shop went, when Michael Baker bought the fish and chip shop and turned it into Baker's Cafe. That I should have seen then.
Beginning of the end.
The destruction of Brunswick Street, as it were, and the disappearance of the people that I knew. Yeah. There was also like a rehousing settlement idea put up by the then the Housing Commission. Yeah. where they moved people from the high-rise boxes, you know, those rabbit hutches they shouldn't have been in anyway.
Yeah.
Moved them further out, further up north. We call it up north. It's actually North Fitzroy.
Yeah.
But up north.
Yeah.
And you lost people from the streets. They lost the places where they'd shop, the park benches we'd sit on and talk to each other. Tram stops were a meeting place. You could sit and chat to anyone on the tram stops, even the old fellas.
Yeah.
Who used to drink from the brown paper bags. You know.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen a man with a bottle in a brown paper bag for years in Brunswick Street. He wouldn't be allowed, would he? They'd certainly clean him up and move him along.
Yeah.
We had fabulous feeling for the community. I was working in the youth centre. It's actually called the Fitzroy Youth Centre, which Fitzroy Youth Club later on became the youth centre.
Yeah.
And sometimes you didn't know who was in there because parents would come in and do work in there as well for other people's kids, and classes and things were going on.
Yeah.
The cops are okay. The same old bloke was the senior sergeant at Fitzroy, and he was fine. Never gave anyone any trouble. You know, only if there were like, some criminals around, and there's criminals every suburb, and it doesn't have to be Fitzroy.
Yeah.
It was good, and when the young fellas, like 13 or 14, used to get into trouble for, you know, lifting something from the shop or something, you know, a bit of five-finger discount, the old cop would take them home and shove them to their parents, you know, and that sort of, and he'd sometimes give them a kick in the pants. But there was no sort of assault by the police or any horror or any, there wasn't even like too much of an us and them sort of, you know, it was a good standing feud. That we sort of call it, oh, drop off a cop, and they go, oh yeah, go on. You know, smart. It was that kind of a good nature.
Much more honest.
Like footy team, like different footy teams, you know.
Yeah.
There was no problem like there is, well, I'm very wary of the police now. Well, I don't know them. They're different ones.
Yeah.
But they're also, they don't know me. They don't know anyone from this area. They don't know the community. Used as a training ground, I suppose. But I was going to tell you about Fitzroy. It was a wonderful, in the 70s, of course, was a time in Australia when we had, like, with the advent of Goffin, we got Lionel Murphy and legal aid. Oh, I'll never forget Lionel Murphy for what he gave us.
Yeah, he gave a lot.
He was brilliant, wonderful. And we had this new approach to social work. Where social work used to be in the old, like, 50s style, like the John Howard style of, I'll help you, you poor creature. Have some soup. You know, I will help you. Patronising attitude. But no, we're saying people are people. There's nothing wrong with them. That people just have a lack of sufficient income. And so the whole area was changed because it was a poor area. Was changed to take all this into account. And the Fitzroy Council, bless them, the fabulous, well, it's the Labor Council. And I say Labor, I mean real Labor. They were Labor, they were very different from the Liberals, you knew. We had people like Kevin Healy on the council. Kevin Healy was a fabulous councillor. Bob Skates, Bob Skates, who spent time in jail for not going to the war in Vietnam. He was locked up in jail for a long time, till Goff let him out. And then he turns up, you know, a few years later, and he's on the council at Fitzroy. And we used to, was like the charitable department was run by one dear, nice, elderly woman who organised things like the soup kitchen. And they overturned that whole system and employed a social planning officer. And nowhere in the history of any local government, well, in this country, had anyone actually employed full-time worker, not a town planner, a social planner, who said this, you know, that our area here in Fitzroy, it's where, you know, it's our place, and there are people in it not quite as well off as others, and we have to have this properly, you know, programmed into our planning. And it was a good time to be. It was a happy time. I was proud to be walking around Fitzroy, and I felt at home in it. It's and of course I can feel a bit sort of, well, nostalgic for old times because I am getting older. I'm closer to 60 than I am to 50. And like anyone getting older, thinking, oh, the good old days. But I walk along, you know, I walk along the street, and there's a number of people that I don't know, and a lot of people seem to be rather useless, sitting there talking on mobile phones with their Ray-Bans on. But no one will step aside for you. No one will help any woman with a pusher. And the homeless, look, I remember when homeless was an adjective, not a noun.
Yeah.
But you see homeless people sometimes in Fitzroy, and they looked as if an article of sort of fun. They follow the colour.
Yeah.
You go, let's come and have a gig at some of these old sticks wandering around Fitzroy, you know.
Yeah.
In the old days, we would punch people like that.
Yeah. so where do you think Fitzroy's heading then now as a suburb?
Oh, I think it's losing everything that it ever had. People want to move into Fitzroy once houses were somewhat cheaper, and they are beautiful. There's some beautiful old historic places there, and people like to move in there, and everything's here. You don't need to move out of Fitzroy.
Yeah.
We're sitting in Fitzroy now.
Yeah.
You don't have to move anywhere out of Fitzroy.
Yeah.
There. These people say, what a lovely suburb to live. I'll move in there, and then I'll change it.
Yeah, for the worse.
And cars. They all bring 2 cars with them.
Yeah.
When you don't really need a car in Fitzroy, you've got transport all around you. You can walk to the city. I often do.
Ride a bike.
Or ride a bike.
Yeah.
It's a bit dangerous to be riding a bike with so many 4-wheel drives around these little tiny back lanes. But they bought these houses, and then they started worrying about somehow their rates.
Yeah.
Their real estate values.
Yeah.
So they don't want a bit of colour. I don't know how I can describe it. It's really, Craig. It's just a lack of feeling for other human beings.
Yeah.
That it wasn't there before Fitzroy was known for the warmth.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Sue. That's wonderful.
Thank you.